Listen closely, chosen soul. This is not ordinary time, and these are not ordinary words. Something larger than yourself has drawn you here, a stirring beneath the noise, a pulse that vibrates through the unseen layers of reality. You might call it destiny, intuition, divine guidance. Whatever name you choose, it is the same whisper that interrupts your scrolling and says, "Stop." The universe is trying to get your attention, and it will not whisper twice. There are crossroads ahead, invisible to most, but to you, they are beginning to gleam with quiet warning lights. This moment is not entertainment. It is invitation and alarm in the same breath. Everything in your life has been building toward this intersection. The setbacks, the betrayals, the sudden coincidences that didn't feel like coincidence at all of it was choreography. You stand now between the life that drifts and the life that burns with purpose. If your heart beats faster while reading this, that is not anxiety, that is recognition. Something inside knows you have lingered too long in hesitation. The message that follows is not for the casual or the curious. It is for those who sense that the hour is late and that their story is about to turn. So take a breath, steady yourself, and decide. Will you keep reading? Because to stay is to commit. Every sentence that follows carries weight. It might disrupt the comfortable rhythms that kept you numb. It might reveal truths you've been postponing. But if you continue, understand this. You are agreeing to be awakened. You are agreeing to hear what most would rather ignore. And if you do, something will shift. Perhaps quietly at first, perhaps violently, but it will shift. Before we go deeper, make one simple gesture of alignment. Anchor yourself. Close your eyes for a heartbeat and whisper within, "I am ready." That single thought sends a signal through the unseen networks of possibility. It says, you are done with drifting. It says, you are open to guidance. And if you wish, share that readiness with the world. Write the number 99 somewhere visible, not as superstition, but as declaration. 99, the count that reminds you that even one soul still wandering is worth searching for. Let that symbol be your signature of intention, your small spark in the dark. Now listen. The season for casual wandering has ended. The winds are shifting, and the time for hesitation has expired. You have carried talents you barely touched, dreams you folded away like letters never sent. Yet the air itself hums with urgency. There are consequences now for apathy, for distraction, for trusting every voice that speaks sweetly. Somewhere in the shadowed corners of your routine, small dangers wait, subtle diversions, alluring shortcuts, people whose smiles conceal misalignment. They do not always mean harm, but they are not walking your road, and their footsteps will lead you off it if you are not alert. Do you feel it? That restlessness that won't let you settle? It is not dissatisfaction. It is a summons. Something vast is calling you to clarity. The world is loud with advice and performance, but few voices carry truth. Discernment is now your lifeline. Not every friend is meant for every season. Not every opportunity is divine simply because it glitters. Some gifts arrive wrapped in distraction. Some doors open only to empty rooms. Your task is to sense the difference, to pause when your spirit tightens, to move only when peace returns. This is the art of spiritual survival. Trust deeper than sight. Trust that unseen protection surrounds you, guiding each decision, even the ones that feel like detours. When someone you depended on suddenly withdraws, do not chase them. Thank the timing. When a plan collapses just before completion, do not despair. Look closer. Perhaps collapse was rescue disguised. The unseen intelligence that watches over you is not punishing. It is preserving. It closes doors, not to trap you, but to steer you toward corridors you would never have found otherwise. You may have noticed that the landscape of your life feels unstable lately. Familiar things shifting, safe routines cracking open. That is not chaos, it is recalibration. The energies that shaped your past identity can no longer sustain the person you are becoming. You are being edited by purpose. Every delay, every sudden ending, every burst of silence from someone you thought permanent, it all serves the refinement of your path. The pruning is painful, yes, but only what is unneeded is being trimmed. The fruit must have room to grow. Understand this. Alignment always requires separation. There are people who carry beautiful intentions but fragmented frequencies. Their presence muffles your signal. It is not cruelty to step back. It is stewardship. If someone consistently pulls you toward confusion, compromise, or exhaustion, they are not enemies, but they are not your anchors either. You were not chosen to maintain every connection. You were chosen to protect the mission planted in you. Guard it. Not everyone who applauds you believes in you. Not everyone who listens deserves your story. Silence, therefore, becomes your shield. The less you broadcast, the more power you conserve. The quiet hours, the pauses others mistake for idleness, these are your sacred workshops. In stillness, clarity is born. In silence, guidance grows audible. Let others chase noise. You are being taught the discipline of peace. When you protect the details of your vision, you protect the energy that sustains it. Some revelations are too delicate for open air. They blossom only in secrecy until the appointed moment. You may not see it, but invisible forces are already at work around you. Situations rearrange themselves, faces appear and vanish, circumstances conspire for your growth. Every obstacle you face is known in advance by the higher intelligence guiding you. Nothing surprises it. The path may seem uncertain to your eyes, yet every twist has been mapped with precision. The valleys are not punishment, they are classrooms. Each challenge tests the strength of your trust, refines the edge of your discernment, and sharpens your endurance. Ask yourself now, what have you been ignoring? What persistent unease have you labeled as overthinking? Perhaps that tightness in your chest each time you consider a certain decision is not fear, it is forewarning. The intuitive alarm is gentle but relentless. It will repeat until you acknowledge it. Learn to listen before it must shout. Stopping is not failure. Sometimes halting at the edge of temptation is victory itself. The world may interpret caution as weakness, but heaven interprets it as wisdom. Too many are seduced by momentum, the need to keep moving, achieving, proving. But haste is the enemy of destiny. The forces that oppose you know this and will try to make you rush. They will dangle opportunities that glitter like shortcuts, pressing urgency into your heart. Resist. Anything that demands instant commitment without peace in your spirit is suspect. What is true can withstand delay. What is false decays under patience. Remember this principle. It will save you from more than you know. As you move through the days ahead, measure everything by inner stillness. When peace accompanies a choice, proceed. When anxiety coils around it, pause. The inner compass never lies, though it may contradict logic or desire. And when you must act, act boldly. Faith is not passivity, it is confident movement born of clarity. You are being prepared for impact. The world will soon require the version of you that is decisive yet humble, fierce yet centered. This transformation begins not in grand gestures, but in quiet, consistent obedience to the small nudges you usually dismiss. The message, then, is simple but severe. Guard your focus, your energy, your circle. The unseen war is not fought with weapons, but with attention. Whatever controls your focus controls your fate. Every headline, every rumor, every flattering voice competes for the sacred real estate of your mind. Protect it. Curate what you consume. Ask of each influence, does this build my faith or drain it? Does it anchor me in truth or scatter me in fear? You cannot carry your calling with a cluttered mind. Cleanse it daily. Silence the noise until what remains is unmistakably real. You are here because you are meant to wake up. The hour is late, but not lost. There is still time to turn, to choose deliberately rather than drift reactively. This is your first call, an alarm disguised as words on a screen. Let it burn away complacency. Let it mark the beginning of vigilance. For ahead lies deeper revelation, stronger storms, and greater glory than you have yet imagined. The next part will show you how to walk the narrow road without fear, how to discern the counterfeit from the true, and how to rise when the night grows darkest. But for now, pause, breathe, absorb this truth. You have not stumbled here by accident. You are being summoned. The silence that followed was heavy, not empty but dense, with unseen movement, as though the air itself had thickened with intent. The chosen soul stood at the edge of this new awareness, feeling the tremor that comes when everything familiar begins to shed its disguise. The world appeared the same. Streets, faces, laughter, the dull hum of ordinary hours, but underneath, the texture had changed. Every glance seemed to conceal a message, every delay a design. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. If purpose truly guided each step, then nothing could be dismissed as coincidence. The comfort of randomness was gone. In its place stood responsibility, the weight of knowing that choices now echoed through invisible corridors. For days, the chosen one moved through routines like an actor aware of the audience just beyond the lights. Words spoken by friends felt layered, every gesture carrying double meaning. There were moments of dizziness, of wanting to retreat back into ignorance, yet curiosity held firm. The whisper of the unseen still called, sometimes soft as breath, sometimes roaring like a storm through the mind. It spoke not in sentences, but in impulses, sudden clarity flashing between thoughts. Slow down. Wait here. Do not answer yet. These impressions began to sculpt new habits, pausing before speaking, listening before reacting, discerning before trusting. Slowly, life transformed from a rush of reaction into a deliberate dance of attention. It was during one of these pauses that the first real test arrived. An opportunity, polished and promising, gleamed before them. A collaboration that seemed designed for breakthrough. Every external sign pointed to yes. The timing, the applause of peers, the thrill of recognition. Yet beneath the surface of excitement ran a quiet undertow of unease, subtle but persistent. The more the mind argued, the louder the unease hummed. At night, when distractions fell silent, that hum became thunder. Something isn't right. The chosen one wrestled with it, torn between ambition and intuition, between the comfort of logic and the discomfort of truth. At last, a decision was made, not by reason, but by peace. They walked away. The days that followed were filled with doubt. Had they misheard? Was caution just fear in disguise? Friends called it hesitation. Some even whispered failure. Yet weeks later, the truth unfolded. The glittering offer had been a mirage, a structure built on deceit. What could have destroyed reputation and spirit collapsed without them. Gratitude flooded in, heavy and humbling. For the first time, the Chosen One understood that protection often wears the mask of disappointment. Not every closed door is rejection. Some are divine barricades shielding what must endure. That revelation became a cornerstone. Trust the unease, even when it isolates you. From that moment, a different kind of clarity settled. Less about predicting the future, more about perceiving alignment. Patterns emerged. The right connections carried calm, even amid chaos. The wrong ones shimmered with charm, but left a residue of confusion. The chosen soul began to notice that truth always moved quietly, without performance, while deception demanded attention. So they learned to honor stillness, to treasure the quiet corners of each day. Morning walks became meditations. Small tasks became ceremonies of awareness. The world had not changed, but perception had sharpened until even the ordinary glowed with instruction. Yet awakening comes with cost. The more the veil lifted, the lonelier the path grew. Conversations that once thrilled now felt hollow, filled with words that danced around meaning. Invitations came less often. Some friendships cooled into polite distance, but the solitude was not empty. It became a forge. Within it, the Chosen One confronted every hidden motive: the desire for approval, the fear of being misunderstood, the addiction to speed. Fire purifies metal by heat. Purpose purifies character by exposure. The process hurt, but beneath the ache was growth, a deepening rootedness impossible to explain to those who still lived for applause. Nights became longer. Dreams thickened with symbolism. Doors opening into lightless corridors, hands releasing chains of glass, a voice repeating, "Stay steady." These visions felt less like imagination and more like messages from the inner sanctum of consciousness, where the sacred and the psychological meet. Each morning, fragments of those dreams lingered, guiding decisions in subtle ways. The Chosen One began to write them down, filling pages with sketches, questions, half-remembered sentences. Over time, the journal became a map, not of geography, but of transformation. Looking back through its pages revealed a pattern of pruning and planting, loss and renewal, each event interconnected like constellations in a dark sky. Then came the season of testing by abundance. After the silence and pruning, opportunities multiplied. Invitations poured in. People once distant sought connection again, and resources that had been scarce flowed freely. It would have been easy to interpret this as pure reward, but deeper discernment whispered caution. Prosperity is as testing as hardship. Each gift carries its temptation, to pride, to distraction, to dependency. The Chosen One moved carefully, learning to enjoy blessings without letting them define identity. Gratitude replaced greed, and stewardship replaced ownership. The true measure of maturity was not how much could be gained, but how lightly it could be held. Still, temptation is subtle. One evening, standing before a crowd that cheered with unfiltered adoration, a flicker of old desire returned, the craving to be seen, to be celebrated. It was intoxicating. For a heartbeat, they forgot the still small voice, basking instead in the light of human approval. And in that brief lapse, words slipped from the tongue that did not belong to purpose, promises made in haste, energy scattered. The aftermath was swift. The applause faded. Confusion followed, and the Chosen One felt the sting of dissonance, a reminder that alignment must be guarded even in triumph. Humility was not an accessory, but armor. Recovery required silence again. They retreated not out of shame, but necessity. In that solitude, lessons deepened. True authority does not shout, it emanates. Influence is not measured by numbers, but by integrity. The chosen one realized that every platform, every connection, every resource was merely a tool, and tools are neutral until intention wields them. So the heart became the workshop of intention. Each motive was laid bare, examined in the light of authenticity. The process stripped away vanity and fear alike, leaving behind a quiet certainty. Purpose cannot coexist with pretense. With clarity restored, the chosen one returned to the world, not to conquer it, but to serve it differently. The tone changed, less dramatic, more grounded. Words carried weight because they were forged in silence. Those who listened felt not manipulation, but resonance, as though hearing a familiar truth spoken in a new tongue. Doors opened naturally, unforced, each one aligned with timing rather than ambition. The journey no longer felt like pursuit, but partnership, a collaboration between seen effort and unseen grace. And in that rhythm, peace finally found permanence. Looking back, the chosen soul understood that awakening was never a single moment, but an unfolding sequence. Warning, loss, clarity, testing, refinement. Each stage necessary, each one chiseling away illusion. The fear that once defined them had transformed into reverence. The urgency that once panicked them had become focus. What began as alarm had matured into assurance. The unseen is not against you. It is preparing you. The same force that closes doors also lights the path beneath your next step. And so the journey continues, no longer a frantic search for meaning, but a deliberate walk within it. The night is not over, but the dawn is already rising at the edges. The air before dawn carries a strange weight, a kind of pregnant stillness that feels like both an ending and a beginning. When the chosen one awoke that morning, the room was steeped in the half-light that blurs the line between dream and waking. For a moment they could not tell whether they were still within a vision or back inside the physical world. The breath hung visible in the cold air, and every exhale shimmered like a whisper from another realm. Something inside had shifted during the night. An invisible seam had torn open, releasing a clarity so complete it almost hurt. They rose slowly, feet meeting the floorboards with a deliberate steadiness, aware that this day would mark the crossing from seeking to becoming. The long preparation of pain, silence, and surrender had ripened into readiness. Outside, the landscape looked untouched, yet the chosen ones saw it differently now. The horizon was not merely a line, but a pulse, the heartbeat of creation stretching endlessly forward. Every color carried sound, every movement an echo of meaning. The wind pressed softly against the face, not as weather, but as communion. This was the gift of awakening. Perception reborn, senses tuned to subtler frequencies. They walked without destination, guided not by reason, but by an inner compass that pointed toward alignment rather than location. With each step, fragments of the old self fell away. The anxious striving, the hunger for recognition, the compulsive need to control outcomes. What remained was presence, pure and unguarded. Memories surfaced like ghosts seeking release. They saw the younger version of themselves, eager and afraid, standing in the ruins of earlier choices, mistaking chaos for destiny. They forgave that self without hesitation. Every misstep, every failure, every heartbreak had been a classroom disguised as disaster. There was no wasted pain. Each scar had taught endurance. Each silence had taught listening. The chosen one realized that grace often moves backwards. It redeems what already happened rather than preventing it. And so gratitude expanded beyond the boundaries of circumstance. It included even the storms that once shattered faith, because those storms had cleared the sky for truth. By midday, the world had awakened fully, yet inside them a deeper quiet grew. The journey was no longer about reaching somewhere else, but about inhabiting what had always been present. They felt the hum of interconnectedness, the trees exchanging breath, the ground remembering every step, the sky reflecting every thought. There was no separation, only degrees of awareness. For the first time, the Chosen One understood that enlightenment was not escape from the world, but deeper participation in it. To be awake was to feel everything, the joy and the ache, the beauty and the decay, the laughter of strangers and the cry of distant suffering. Sensitivity was no longer a curse, it was communion. In that expanded state, the Chosen One returned to places once avoided. Old relationships, long abandoned dreams, unresolved fragments, all were revisited, not to reopen wounds, but to close them with understanding. They met former rivals with eyes unarmed, speaking not in defense, but in truth. To their surprise, hostility melted in the warmth of sincerity. The act of seeing others without judgment dissolved invisible walls that had divided them for years. Forgiveness became less a moral duty and more a natural response, like exhaling after holding breath too long. Through reconciliation, they discovered that liberation is not a solitary achievement, but a shared atmosphere. Peace must radiate outward to remain alive. The months that followed were not free of struggle. Awakening does not cancel human experience. It transforms the way one meets it. There were days when fatigue returned, when doubt crept back like an old friend knocking politely. But now, the Chosen One greeted it with awareness rather than resistance. Each challenge became an invitation to apply wisdom, not a threat to identity. They learned that light, to be useful, must exist alongside shadow. Only contrast gives shape to meaning. And so they moved through life like a weaver, intertwining moments of joy and sorrow into a single fabric of purpose. Then came the moment of calling fulfilled. The realization that all preparation had been leading to service. Opportunities emerged not through ambition, but through alignment. People arrived who carried similar resonance, drawn by the quiet authority of authenticity. The Chosen One began to teach, not formally, but through presence, conversations that ignited clarity in others, gestures that restored faith without explanation. What once required effort now flowed effortlessly. Influence was no longer about persuasion, but transmission, the silent exchange of understanding that travels from heart to heart without words. They became, in essence, a mirror in which others saw their own potential reflected. Yet the higher one ascends, the subtler the trials become. Praise replaced criticism, abundance replaced scarcity, and with them came new temptations. To believe in personal ownership of grace, to mistake channel for source. One evening, standing before a gathering that hung on every word, the Chosen One felt the faint stirring of pride, soft, seductive, almost imperceptible. It whispered of exceptionalism, of being chosen above rather than among. Instantly, a memory surfaced, the silence of those first lonely nights of awakening, when they had cried for guidance with nothing but stillness in reply. The remembrance dissolved the illusion. They bowed inwardly, acknowledging that the journey's true measure was humility. The higher the mountain, the deeper the root must sink. Seasons changed. The Chosen One aged, though time now felt circular rather than linear. Lessons repeated in gentler tones, each spiral bringing greater simplicity. They discovered that wisdom often expresses itself through kindness, that strength reveals itself through gentleness. Power ceased to mean control. It meant presence, the capacity to hold space without agenda. Even in chaos, they emanated calm, not through suppression, but through acceptance. The storms still came, but no longer found anything to destroy. Within, there was only still water reflecting the vast sky. As years passed, stories began to surround them, tales of miracles, coincidences, transformations. People called them teacher, healer, guide, but inside, they knew the truth. They were simply an ordinary soul who had finally listened deeply enough. Their life became a living parable of what happens when surrender replaces striving. They no longer chased purpose, they embodied it. The distinction between sacred and mundane dissolved. Washing dishes became as holy as prayer. Walking through crowded streets felt like meditation. The divine was everywhere, disguised as detail. On the final evening of this long chapter, the Chosen One returned to the hill overlooking the city, where the first awakening had begun. The skyline shimmered in dusk light, countless windows flickering like constellations of human hope. They sat in silence, breathing the same wind that once carried confusion and now carried peace. Memory unfolded like a scroll. The warnings, the solitude, the lessons, the refinement. Everything had served its purpose. The voice that once thundered now whispered from within, no longer separate. They realized that the true revelation was not a message delivered from above, but an awareness awakened from within. What they had sought outside had always been the quiet radiance of consciousness itself. As night descended, they closed their eyes and felt the rhythm of existence moving through them. The same rhythm that beats in stars and seas, in birth and decay. There was no more striving, no more seeking, only being. The journey had come full circle, not by reaching the end, but by dissolving the need for one. The Chosen One smiled, knowing that awakening is not an event to boast about, but a state to live gently. And in that stillness, the world exhaled with them. A single breath, shared between creation and creator, between the seen and unseen, between what was and what will forever continue to become.